Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies both new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, Adam Sandler fights 80s video game characters in Pixels. Jake Gyllenhaal fights to keep his daughter and his heavyweight title in Southpaw. Ian McKellen plays Sherlock Holmes, fighting old age in Mr. Holmes. And Amy Winehouse fights her drug addiction in the documentary Amy.
A lot of fighting this week.
But not our top 5 topic, actually.
No.
Because of Jake Gyllenhaal and our love for him, the star of Southpaw, this week we're going to look at our top 5 actors without Oscars, and we'll also discuss what they should have won an Oscar for. We've also got a home media moment for you just before I go, starring Seann William Scott, and we've got our triple feature of older films, of course. That's new classic Escape Plan, Justin's old classic pick Following, and the Oscar-nominated 1939 film Bachelor Mother. The show kicks off with Pixels, a bit of a disappointing opening weekend as is to be expected with Sandler these days, but in this film, a group of video game enthusiasts and champions from 1982, portrayed in the present day by Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Josh Gad, and Peter Dinklage, team up to save the world from video game icons like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, who are sent to attack Earth by aliens who misinterpreted a message that our government sent to them in the 80s. While having an interesting concept, Pixels suffers on literally every level by being a Sandler movie. If it's not corny lines like, "Have you been playing Space Invaders lately because you're invading my space?" It's the usually enjoyable Josh Gad screaming all of his lines at us, or the standard Sandler getting with somebody way out of his league, in this case Michelle Monaghan, or it's the idea that we're supposed to take President Paul Blart as a serious concept. Now, I will say that Dinklage is the only one doing anything amusing. He has some good lines here. The final battle provided some good entertainment, picking out the dozens of old Atari and Nintendo characters. But it does beg the question, how on earth did anybody convince all of the world's biggest game makers to offer up their characters for this? We saw them do it in Wreck-It Ralph. Obviously, that's a much better film. We always talk about Roger Rabbit and how the two big animation studios combined. But I don't know what about this movie spoke to Nintendo and Atari and said, let's sign on. Even for mindless summer entertainment, Pixels is pretty mindless. I leave it with a D+. Joe?
I mean, you said it pretty well. I thought the movie was incredibly dumb, and you're right. I feel like there is such a cool concept here, and that's kind of why I was on board, and I wanted to see where it would actually go. Mm-hmm. And there's enough happening that I can't really say I was ever bored. I guess it's kind of entertaining, but just barely, really. But in terms of characters, most of them just so unlikable. Mm-hmm. Adam Sandler's character is pretty bad throughout most of the movie. I mean, I think Justin liked Josh Gad's character, but I didn't find him that likable.
I mean,
you said he was the best character, and I thought he was pretty annoying.
Compared to the other three, yes, he's the most likable, but that wouldn't take much.
I know this might sound interesting, but just to offer a counterpoint, I guess you could look at it a different way. They're all pretty bad. I actually like President Kevin James.
Did you?
I actually did. I will admit it doesn't make any sense, but for this movie...
No, it doesn't.
I'm like, it's kind of... I thought he was actually giving a decent performance, though, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not like...
I guess he was okay.
Like, I mean,
fair,
after seeing him in something like Blart, you know, I just feel like... I thought he was doing something different. I thought it worked relatively well. I thought some of his lines were okay. I thought he was funny enough.
Dinklage was the only one I really laughed at the whole movie.
Well, that was his lines, though.
I feel like.
I mean, there was delivery. I think everybody was okay. Like, I don't think anybody gave a terrible performance. I mean,
it's not Grown Ups 2 level. I'll give you that.
No, I mean, they were okay. I thought the effects were all right, but the most disappointing thing for me, actually, was that the big hook of the movie is we're fighting these live classic video games. But, spoilers, guys, the battles themselves are all incredibly short and anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen most of it in the trailer, once again.
The Pac-Man chase scene was interesting, because obviously Pac-Man regenerates, like in the game, 3 different times. So they have at least a few different...
That's the thing, though.
...angles on that.
That was the best one of them.
It was.
And even that was kind of short and anticlimactic. I felt.
Just a little bit,
yeah. It was anticlimactic. I don't think it was too short, but it was anticlimactic.
I mean, I think building up to... Well, if you built up to Pac-Man, the thing is they follow up with that with Donkey Kong, which was incredibly disappointing for a climax.
True.
They cheat, honestly. So it just breaks the logic of the game. And
also, how many people did they have say the line, "Don't tell anybody I killed a Smurf"? Because in the previews, it's President Kevin James.
Yeah.
In the actual movie, it's Michelle Monaghan.
That's obviously...
So they have everybody do a take and see what works.
Like, who's best for that. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really No,
The line just isn't that funny.
Right.
I didn't think
No,
it was
it's
that
not
funny
that
either.
funny anyway.
It was kind of an odd line. There, like I said, I liked some of the effects for it. I liked the concept a lot, and I feel like there is some passion somewhere from somebody, but unfortunately, it's just not the actual plot to hold it together. There were like the best scene in the movie for me. I was watching. I told Justin was when they're actually training the big military guys on all the classic
wasn't
video games.
bad.
If they had gone with that and made it kind of like a satire, kind of as a love letter to the old video games,
Right.
which I think the movie wanted to be potentially, that could have been cool. But it just follows through, makes it incredibly generic. I'm with you, Dan. I leave it with a D+.
Okay, Justin?
Well, this is really a major disappointment for me. I mean, when you look at the director, Chris Columbus, who gave us the first 2 Harry Potter movies, I believe the first Home Alone, the guy's got some great stuff under his belt. Why did he miss the mark so royally with Pixels? I feel like if this hadn't been a Sandler movie, it could have been that sort of like Scott Pilgrim nostalgic, like it's a love letter to classic gaming.
It could have been smart, honestly.
It could have been, but the story's just really dumb, and it's also needlessly raunchy and offensive. I thought Sandler was ridiculously sexist in this movie. I'm surprised feminists aren't up in arms.
He was pretty bad.
And he basically looks like he's sleepwalking through the entire performance.
Yeah.
Which is weird. You're fighting Pac-Man.
To be fair,
Try to look a little excited.
Just to offer a minor counterpoint, I think the idea is he's such an expert he doesn't have to try that hard, which hurts the tension of the film. But I think that's what they were going for. Like, I know all the patterns,
Possibly.
man. I guess he's so laid back about it.
But here's where I will give the movie a lot of credit. The visual component is fantastic.
It's pretty good.
I'd argue it's probably the best use of 3D I've seen all year long. And even though the action sequences are a little bit anticlimactic, they aren't so much anticlimactic, it's just the first one they're just getting started so they don't really know what's going on. Mm-hmm. The second one, most of it was in the trailer, but it's still fairly compelling. I just wish it ran like 2-3 minutes longer. The climax is, well, the climax, but it's, I guess, good for what it is. I also leave it with a D+.
I didn't see it in 3D.
It's all right.
I missed the mark on that one, so I can't speak to that. But I do think the visual component's good. But the issue has nothing to do with Chris Columbus.
No.
I mean, visually it's fine. It's directed well. The script is terrible.
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with Chris Columbus.
It's edited fine. Like,
Yeah.
really, Justin, I don't think
Why
it's
he signed on for it, I don't know. But it's not his fault.
The story is terrible.
Yeah.
The story is terrible, but I feel like there could have been a way to like make this sort of a goofy, fun movie.
Not from the director. The director made it as fun as
like
it could be with this script.
You got to remember, it's Chris Columbus, but he's working for Happy Madison, and you know how dominant their particular style is. It is that type of film.
Yeah.
However, I would also say that begs the question: how much involvement did Happy Madison take? Like, for example, it could have been a very different script. Happy Madison got hold of it, added their own little spin to it.
It's written by Happy Madison regulars. Tim Herlihy is an old Sandler friend from the SNL days.
It's pretty.
I see.
It's got
Justin,
Happy Madison 100%.
You said it yourself. It's raunchy. It's sexist. It's
Yeah.
Happy Madison.
To be honest, though, I think that's a good point because I think that this movie would have done better and would have been better if they went for a PG version of it.
I agree.
You know, Jack and Jill was PG and that was terrible, but like the Paul Blart movies do very well. You know, because parents are looking for
something to take their kids to.
Yeah, this is PG, okay. There's no reason, you're right, Justin, there's no reason this movie has to play the lower brow Sandler card.
No,
Because Sandler has different modes. I mean, sometimes he does PG, sometimes he does R.
Sometimes Cobbler.
Sometimes he's in the middle. And Cobbler is anybody's
Wherever
guess.
that is.
But this could have easily been a PG movie. There's no reason that him and Michelle Monaghan even needed to have a romance.
Nope.
Yeah, that was
Not that has to be
awkward.
gone completely from the movie.
No, but I mean, she's already got involvement because she's got the kid, and then he gets along with the kid, and then she's part of the, the president's cabinet or whatever. I mean, she's already integrated. She doesn't need to also have the romance.
Well,
I think that just speaks to the whole statement we've been talking about relatively infrequently all season. You can have a platonic relationship in movies. It is possible.
Yeah.
Kingsman: The Secret Service, The Imitation Game.
yes, and I'm the one that should be mad about it because I thought there were too many problems in this movie. But yes, it's one of my biggest gripes with film in general. It's just like you don't need to force the romance in there in every single movie.
No.
You don't need to. You can have a compelling story without romance. I know why they do it, but sometimes it doesn't matter. There's too much going on anyway.
Also, right, you're trying to literally save the world. It's unnecessary.
It also kind of detracts from the big
Like,
deal.
kill Centipede instead.
On agreement.
No, bad movie. Up next is Southpaw. Joe?
Southpaw is a 2015 American sports drama thriller directed by Antoine Fuqua, who Justin loves so much. And written by Kurt Sutter. He done anything, guys? I don't know.
Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Oh, I like him. The film stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Forrest Whitaker, and Rachel McAdams briefly. The boxer Billy Hope, played by Gyllenhaal, turns to the trainer, Forrest Whitaker, Tick Willis in this movie, to help him get his life back on track after losing his wife in a tragic accident and his daughter to Child Protection Services. He has to work to get his daughter back and his career back, and a typical boxing drama with a little bit extra. And that's basically the movie. The best thing I could say is that think of the most basic boxing story, and that's basically this movie. It kind of follows all the same tropes. The only thing that really elevates it, honestly, and I don't think anyone can deny this, is that Gyllenhaal, once again, completely transforms himself. Literally a role vastly different than anything he's done recently, and I'm just blown away by it, and I will praise him throughout this review. I believe this is a completely different person, and I think it's just a great example of amazing acting when you really get to see somebody step into a role and completely transform themselves. And he's really what elevates this fairly basic story. But even so, I have to admit, I've always kind of liked the boxing movies. I kind of like the standard rounds, and I do think there is some interesting drama. I do like the idea of the man really having to struggle with his own demons. But basically, he loses his wife to basically a shootout, and it's kind of revealed in the trailers, which I think also was an issue with the advertising we discussed. But on the whole, I did like some of the training aspects. I did like the drama. I do think it's a little underdeveloped in some areas. Like, I kind of wanted more of the drama with him trying to get with his daughter and dealing with that component of it, because I thought that was potentially the most interesting part of the movie. But the movie knows that it's going to do the boxing best because I guess the writers and directors are most familiar with that. And so they run with that. Some of the cinematography is great. Some of the fights are really intense. The makeup's good. Gyllenhaal's performance is great. And even Forrest Whitaker does pretty decent as well. It's really not anything special except for some awesome cinematography and some great performances. So I'm going to leave it with a B-. I was kind of very, very conflicted about this one.
Okay. Justin, how about for you on Southpaw?
I think this is your textbook great performance in a mediocre movie. Anton Fuqua, with the exception of maybe Training Day, maybe Tears of the Sun.
Maybe The Equalizer. Maybe one day.
Maybe someday.
Not for Justin, ever.
Maybe someday, but not today. I feel like he's always style over substance, and I feel like this is yet another case for this one. You're right, Joe. It's incredibly by the numbers. Gyllenhaal does a fantastic job with this movie. I'd argue he's a little shaky in the beginning. I think he mumbles a couple of his lines a little too much. May have also been because, once again, Rachel McAdams does a incredibly inconsistent accent. But then again, she's only present for 30 minutes.
I thought she was fine, man.
But
I did notice the accent. Yeah. And I like McAdams, but this was not a good accent for her.
Admittedly, it's nowhere near as bad as A Most Wanted Man last year, but it's still noticeable. I'm a little bit more conflicted than you in terms of the cinematography. I feel like in a couple moments, he has these moments that could have been really well shot and really well thrown together. But then we'll be in the ring and he's doing these like slow-mo shots. And then there are other times where I'm not entirely sure where he's focusing. And it gets really confusing to keep up with things.
I guess maybe, well, I did think it was shot well, but I think I was just impressed by the brutality of the fights. I've seen very few boxing fights like that really sold me on how brutal it was.
Very realistic.
So in terms of the makeup and the lighting, I just think that something about those shots really did pop to me. Like, I just felt like, wow, this is pretty intense.
No. There are some that he's like right on the money, but there are some where I was staring at the screen for several moments at a time, just thinking, where are you focusing? I mean, I get that he was also trying to throw in POV shots in there, which I think might have been, which sometimes works for it, sometimes works against it. For me, it was about 50-50. The other really noticeable issue for me is I thought the pacing for this movie was all over the place. There's an old saying in screenwriting, make your characters earn their achievements. In this one, I felt like Jake Gyllenhaal's character just sort of has like one little instance, and we're on to the next thing. And then there's another little instance, and we're on to the next thing. It doesn't really build. It just sort of is like, okay, it's convenient. And that makes some of the lines really, really forced, and some of the actions even more so.
I'll be honest, I don't think that's necessarily a pacing issue. I think that's the problem with just the investment of the characters themselves. Because even though that's one of the reasons I couldn't give it a very high grade, is because even though it's aiming for really high stakes, we never really get to get sold on the stakes because we don't know his wife very well. So when we lose her, it doesn't have quite as much of an impact. And he's a very internal character, so we don't really get to see him express himself. And then it becomes more focused on the boxing aspect, so I guess he channels that. But it's almost like what happens with his wife in that drama almost becomes a side note. That's why I feel like if they focus more on that. So I don't know if it's necessarily pacing by how they do each event, but how they should have focused on building it up initially.
In one instance that really bothered me is, okay, obviously, as per boxing movie cliche, we have to have a big training montage.
Mm-hmm. But I like the training montage.
There is one fight scene, and then he's like straight up training montage moment. It's not a bad movie. It's just not really a good one. Though I do think Gyllenhaal could potentially be an Oscar contender. Hard to say. I leave it with a C.
Well, Gyllenhaal is clearly the reason that this movie packs such an emotional punch.
Oh.
I knew Justin would love that.
That's good.
No, it doesn't necessarily present a lot of new ideas. You guys are both right on that. But because of him and some of these other performers, and a pretty decent script by Sutter, I thought it was fine. I think it works better than it probably should.
I agree.
With all of the elements behind it.
Definitely.
I do agree with both of you, or maybe it was more of Joe's point, but that I would have liked to see more with McAdams and Gyllenhaal. A little bit more, I don't know if background is even the right word.
More interaction.
More of a justification for why we're so upset.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Not just because,
okay,
he lost his wife, she lost her mother, okay. But she was only in like 4 scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we don't really care as much as they do.
We don't care nearly as much as they do. I did think, though, that there was a pretty good balance between the family story and the fighting. Now, for me personally, yes, the family story is a lot more interesting to me because I don't like boxing. Mm-hmm. But the movie's called Southpaw. It's a boxing movie. I think it spent as much time as it needed to on that story. And neither of you actually mentioned this. Maybe I'm the only one. But I thought the daughter, Una Lawrence, plays her, was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Never saw her in anything. I thought she did a really, really good job here.
I liked her. Yeah, she's good.
Justin didn't.
I was a little conflicted with her.
That's why I didn't comment.
I think this is another one of those moments where who do you blame, the director or the script? But I felt like a lot of the lines regarding her were very forced.
I thought she sounded a little too adult sometimes.
Agreed.
Well,
I don't know if that's...
I sort of felt like she had to kind of be more adult because she just got taken away from her family because her mom got murdered and her dad's a big, violent alcoholic. That grows a person up, so I let it go.
How old is she, though?
I would estimate about...
I couldn't tell.
8, maybe?
I thought even for an 8-year-old... I mean, it's hard to predict how any kid would act. I was okay with it, but I thought some of the lines were a little off.
Yeah, I thought she was very good. I'm a little bit above you, Joe. I actually leave it with a B.
Oh. Now,
interesting.
I wonder, how do you guys feel about Whitaker? Because I thought he gave a decent performance for first time in a while.
Yeah, but I know that was funny when you said, like, surprisingly, Whitaker even gives a good performance or whatever. I think he's usually pretty good.
No, I think Forrest Whitaker's a great actor. It's just the last couple things I remember seeing him in, I didn't feel like he was giving it his all. Out of the Furnace was the classic mumbling, where he was just whispering the whole movie. I was like, I literally remember watching that like...
That was a bad mumble.
What did he say? Like,
that movie was bad.
I could understand what he was saying this time, which was better.
Okay.
He was...
Yes, he was very good here.
It was good to see him in a decent movie, I guess.
That's true.
Which I haven't seen in a while.
That's true. All right, well, let's move on. We've got Mr. Holmes now, and Justin's going to tell us about that.
What's up, Holmes?
For years, Sherlock Holmes, played by Ian McKellen, has been envisioned as a deerskin, hat-wearing, pipe-smoking sleuth with an impeccable talent for deductive reasoning. Though that is a bit of an embellishment made up by his assistant, Watson, who wrote all of the stories that have made him legendary. Now a 93-year-old man with a fading memory, Holmes struggles to use what's left of his abilities to solve his last case, with the help of his housekeeper's inquisitive son, Roger, played by Milo Parker. Laura Linney also stars. It's interesting that we get a movie like Mr. Holmes in this day and age where we have quite literally every flavor imaginable of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
We have the action hero Sherlock Holmes. We have the old school BBC style Sherlock Holmes. We have him as an addict. I could go on all day. But in that regard, it also seems nearly impossible to bring something new to the table. But director Bill Condon adapts Mitch Cohen's downright love letter to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's beloved character, and with a leading man like Ian McKellen, takes the screen like it was completely meant for him. He's compelling, he's fascinating, and yet you see how much his character has evolved over the course of his career. This is definitely a man well past his prime, but it's still retaining some of that sharp wit without being as biting as he may have been depicted in other movies or TV shows. However, therein lies the main issue of the film. There is a mystery,
Couple, actually.
which is far more that can be said for the Guy Ritchie action movie starring Robert Downey Jr., but it's not quite as head-scratching as it wants to be. Then again, this isn't a straight-up mystery-focused movie. This is a more character-driven version of Sherlock Holmes, which I like, focusing on the mystery of his psyche, which I like even more. So I feel like this can mostly be forgiven. I leave Mr. Holmes with an A.
Wow. Pretty high up. Yeah, what's funny, and you said it, Justin, is that the mystery element is the weakest part of the entire thing. And that's not exactly what you want in a Sherlock Holmes movie, but the acting is truly superb here. McKellen gives one of the finest portrayals of the character in recent years, and that includes his television counterparts, for sure.
Absolutely.
I do think Robert Downey Jr. does a good job with it, but...
He's very different.
He's very different.
I was going to say.
Yeah, he's very different. I think he's more what we classically associate with the character. And here, McKellen, because of his age, is able to play it with more than most can, because he's got 92 years of history behind him. He hasn't solved a case in decades. The young actor, newcomer Milo Parker, also turns in a solid performance. I thought he was good, standing toe-to-toe with Lenny and McKellen. Other than that, the score is great.
Absolutely.
But I have to say, I did think it was a little bit slow in some parts, and I think mainly when he was trying to solve the mystery, because you're right, Justin, it's at its best when it is a character-focused piece, and sometimes I think it loses focus of that. I give it a B+. Joe?
I'm glad you guys liked it. The most amazing aspect here for me is really just these performances. I think that it's always really cool when you get to have a classic character like this, and you can do something different with it. And I'll be honest, I never thought of looking at Sherlock Holmes as an old man. Really is something that we never would have thought of before, and this really reflective story that we have here. McKellen just is amazing. I mean, I've never seen him give anything short of an amazing performance in anything.
True.
Anyway, so to say this is the best, I don't know, but it's amazing. I agree. I think the young actor did a really good job as well, which surprised me. And
it's his first credit as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
never
impressive.
done anything.
Well, if he continues with acting,
Film
I think
credit, at least.
he's got a great career ahead of him for sure. I think. Really, the drama's the best part. I actually did like the mystery though. Now, there's a couple ways to look at it actually, because there is the primary mystery in the film that he wants to solve, but there's a couple other mysteries, because there's his trip to Japan. There's a little bit of mystery there, which I thought was interesting. And then there's actually a little mystery going on with him and the boy with the bees.
I liked that.
So if you have one mystery, there's a couple in there, and I like that. Now, I do agree it's interesting. The mystery is, I mean, I guess it might be the weakest part, but I actually was really interested whenever they flash back at seeing him in that final case. Like seeing him interact with the woman and trying to decipher her feelings. I liked that. It felt like we needed some of that classic Sherlock Holmes in the Sherlock Holmes movie.
Absolutely.
So even if it's just a flavor, I liked that. So I appreciated the multiple layers there. And you guys didn't really mention this, but something that really stood out to me was the makeup to make
Fantastic.
Sir Ian McKellen
Yeah,
look
that's true.
significantly older than he actually is.
Right.
Was incredibly believable. Great.
And a good bit younger, too, in the flashback scenes.
And you're like, oh, and then you see him in the flashback. Like, okay, well, that's not him. That's great makeup. Also, great cinematography. I mean, it's love letter to England right there. Just got the beach. It was very nice. I didn't really have many problems with the movie. I think it maybe was a little slow at parts, but nothing major. I leave it with an A as well. I'm with Justin on this one.
Awesome.
I thought it was very good.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it so much. I guess when I go into a Holmes movie, I really do want there to be a great mystery. I don't necessarily agree that the Guy Ritchie ones don't
They do.
Have that. Now, the Game of Shadows was just kind of a bad movie.
I was going to...
I know, I like the Game of Shadows.
It was like
Game
a
of
B
Shadows
minus.
was delivering on what it was promising. Oh, you get an action-packed version of Sherlock Holmes.
That's kind of what they were selling these movies as. So
The first one, though, I think had a pretty
There was a
solid
mystery.
there was a decent mystery in the
Yeah.
first one. The second one was, we got to go kill this guy.
Right. The second was more of like a Bond movie disguised as a
Sherlock Holmes
as a
story,
Holmes movie, to be honest. But yeah, I do agree, Joe. There's a few different mysteries going on, and I did really like the one at the tail end of the movie with the boy and the bees.
That was good.
It was. I don't know. I think it was nice to see the flashbacks and stuff, but to me, the movie wasn't really about that. It was, I mean, it was because he was reflecting upon his final case and stuff, but I think it was more of a character study with, what does this great sleuth do in his retirement, with the apiary stuff.
And what does that all mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, the mystery element took away from that.
But I think that was pretty crucial to what he was going through. And I mean, and the boy wants to know about it, so it kind of provides an emphasis to keep the story going. And because the kid's interested, we're interested. I mean, to be honest, if they wanted to do just a straight version of him living in retirement and dealing with it, that could have been good too. But then people would have been angrier because there would have been no mystery in Sherlock Holmes. So I don't know if they could have gotten away with that. I found the beekeeping aspect really fascinating.
I did too.
I loved that. I thought it was really interesting. I just think that without it, though, I don't know how much tension the movie would have had. Because there was some with the possibility of them leaving and him being alone. But I think that we really were looking into this man's soul because he's like, I have to finish my final case before I'm done,
I was going to say that defines his character.
So I think it was pretty necessary. I was interested in it.
Well, maybe it could have been a more interesting mystery then for me.
I will admit,
I don't know.
If you were I do think that the mystery itself isn't really like the most intense. I mean,
but I don't think it's supposed to be.
No,
which is why I could warrant an A for this movie.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Justin. But I mean, I'm just thinking. I don't know what to do.
I just think it needed to be more interesting. It didn't have to be intense. It didn't have to be like.
You didn't think what the woman was going through was interesting. I did.
It was all right.
I thought it was all right. I thought it was pretty good. It certainly affected him significantly.
Well, definitely.
It also affected my grade. All right.
Oh.
So up next is Amy. It is a documentary directed by Asif Kapadia of the life and death of British singer Amy Winehouse, going chronologically from her teenage years, just starting to write music, to her early UK stardom, to gaining worldwide fame almost overnight with her smash single Rehab. It then shows us how her fame affected her entire life, and then how getting into hardcore drugs affected that life, and then her eventual end. I would consider myself a pretty big Winehouse fan. She released easily one of the 10 or 15 best albums of the past decade with Back to Black. That's the one that features Rehab on it. And I followed her career from then on. Unfortunately, it was really all downhill by that point, so I only got to see the tabloid side of Winehouse. And I think most people did as well. Kapadia not only shows us a complete picture of a very haunted performer, but shows us a complete picture of the woman herself, completely outside of the limelight as well. And warts and all doesn't even scratch the surface of how bad it got for Winehouse in her short life. The greatest strength of this film, though, is that you don't have to like Amy Winehouse music or even be a music fan at all to appreciate the tragedy of her story. She's a human who happened to make some very wrong choices that proved to be quite fatal. Her fame absolutely played a part in those choices, but that's not the focus of the story. It's on her as a person first, and a performer second. Now, to that end, one of my few complaints about Amy the film is that sometimes it does linger too long on certain song passages. I know Kapadia wanted to highlight her lyrics at various times of her life, show us where she was mentally, but in most cases I felt like a verse or a chorus would have done the trick so we could move on. The documentary is a little bit over 2 hours. It's a little bit lengthy in that regard, but the interviews are great. He chose a very unique tactic. Joe, you didn't get to see this movie, but he chose a very interesting tactic of never really showing the people being interviewed. Everything was done in voiceover, whether it be from interview clips, and that includes, with Winehouse herself, they showed some, interview snippets, but a lot of it was from phone messages that she left or
like
whatever.
That. That's different.
It's very different, and it struck me as this seems to kind of be the first documentary about a famous person where we literally have their entire life in pictures and video and interviews, and almost nothing gets recycled because of this paparazzi age that we live in. Just a wealth of material here. You know, in some documentaries about famous people, it's like they show the same picture, like the J.D. Salinger one, Justin.
Absolutely.
They show the same picture of the person 50 times because they don't have a lot to go on. I can't think of too many pictures that were recycled in this thing. And she was, you know, back from her days playing for Island Records before they signed her. They videotaped her demo, you know, like just everything of this woman's life from about 16 up was chronicled. So there's no dearth of stuff here. I loved this movie. I give it an A. Justin?
Who or what really killed Amy Winehouse? It's the main focus of the movie, and it's one that I feel like has a specific answer from Capadia, but I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that, with the angle that they choose. The movie does an adequate job of focusing on archive footage, which I loved. We saw a lot of insight. I would have never imagined Rehab's a great song, but I was more or less, as you mentioned, Dan, a bit of a victim of the tabloid stuff, her passing out in concerts and various other horrible things. But this really does give a very human perspective on her. That said, I still found some of the arguments made in the movie a bit loaded. While nearly everyone gets several scenes painted in these voiceover interviews, I felt like the director made it a little too easy to make her parents the main villains of the story, giving them minimal commentary on the matter and more or less making it seem like they were barely involved with her life, which they've gone on to mention several times after this came out. It's just not true, but I still think it's well worth a watch just strictly for all the brilliant use of archive footage. I think the interview style is very unique, and I didn't like the fact that it just ended abruptly after her life is
Abruptly ends.
I mean, she's dead. It doesn't go on much longer after that. What else is there to say? There's a few minutes, but...
I mean, you can talk about the legacy, you can talk about what that may have meant. I mean,
Like
we have all this archive footage. What does that mean for is she a victim of the paparazzi generation? I mean, there's a lot of angles that could have been taken with this. Instead, it's over. But it's a good documentary. It's just, I feel like it could have been a great one. I leave Amy with a B+.
I don't think we watched the same movie. I don't think at all he paints her parents as the main victims. There are 3 main victims. Blake, who I certainly knew about from the tabloid days. That's her husband, who got her into some serious drugs. Her parents, mainly her dad, really.
No,
her mom not so much.
I'll agree with that. They definitely made the dad the main one. But...
And you said it yourself at the end of your review, the paparazzi. She couldn't walk down the street without literally thousands of flashbulbs in her face. There are 3 main victims, or 3 main reasons for her demise. I don't think he painted the dad as the main one at all. I think it's equal.
I don't know. I mean, the dad was always like trying to force her in front of the spotlight. The dad keeps trying to make up justifications for it whenever they interview him. And I feel like that's all well and good, but I also feel like you're framing a villain just because you need one.
History has proven with this girl that her dad was not in her life, and that when everyone told her to go to rehab, her dad said, no, no, no. It's part of the song, Justin. He is one of the reasons, but so is Blake.
He's gone on the record to say that Capadia did in fact manipulate that line.
The line of her own song?
No, the fact that he does that when Capadia puts in the interview in the movie, she didn't need to go to rehab. He said in the actual interview when they were recording, she didn't need to go to rehab at that time. Big difference.
That's fine and good. The lyrics to the actual song she wrote said, "My daddy thinks I'm fine." It's like you going toe-to-toe with Joe on Spider-Man stuff. You're not going to win a battle on Amy Winehouse lyrics with me.
No.
But trust me.
That wasn't...
that was part of it.
I wasn't challenging you to a lyric war.
That's part of her repertoire. And in one of the early interview clips that we see, possibly even before the Back to Black album, possibly when her first album was out, she was asked about her father, and she said he was never around. So...
And yet he just sort of randomly shows up.
Yeah, funny how fame does that to parents, Lindsay Lohan. I mean,
Cough,
it's,
cough.
Right, it's an age-old story. That's fine that he says that line was manipulated. Maybe that line was manipulated.
Well, to be fair, it's a song.
But history shows different.
What was going on when she wrote it,
But I don't think he's the main villain here, Justin. I really think Blake has a serious... I mean...
It sounds like the paparazzi to me.
And the paparazzi as well. I mean, it's a vast cornucopia of issues. So I can agree that he paints one villain. Because I was actually going to ask you when you were done your review, who's the one villain? Because I think it's multi.
I feel like there's a lot of factors, but I also feel like the dad manipulated the paparazzi very heavily. I can't speak to the whole Blake thing.
Possible.
I know Blake has also criticized the documentary heavily.
Well, yeah, he should be. But listen, nobody needs to influence the paparazzi. I mean, They're just the scummiest of scum. I can't. I mean, literally, they're carrying Amy Winehouse's dead body, Joe, from the house, and they're just snapping away. It's awful.
It's the dark side of journalism is what it is.
Really is, yeah.
Pretty much.
All right, well, hopefully, Joe, you get to see it before year's end. It's certainly going to be in my top 20, if it's any indication.
It did look good, so I'll check it out.
All right. Well, up next, we have our home media moment, and that is Just Before I Go.
The
Joe?
question is, was this as good?
As Amy? I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's see.
Just Before I Go. It is a 2014 comedy drama film directed by Courtney Cox. Is that the same one I'm thinking of?
It is from Friends.
From Friends, from a screenplay by David Flabout, and starring Sean William Scott, you guys might remember from the American Pie films, and Goon from earlier in one of our podcast episodes. Ted Morgan is Sean William Scott, and he decides to commit suicide. It even opens with that at the beginning, with him literally drowning himself with a long monologue, which seems familiar with a lot of these things, talking about how he got here, and, well, it's a funny story, etc., etc., and then it flashes back. Basically, he is a guy living an average life going nowhere. He returns to his hometown to settle some old scores, particularly with a mean 7th grade teacher who tortured him, basically mutilated him in front of school when he was a kid, and a former bully. And things don't go as planned when they react to him in a way he's not expecting, and there's a romance, of course, and yada yada. You can see it's kind of standard. Well, this movie has some serious pacing issues in the terms that they'll have a joke, and the only thing that could kind of save some of these jokes is the delivery. Like Sean William Scott, I did laugh at some of the things he said, but it's because it's him saying it, and his delivery is good, but the jokes are mean-spirited, or they're dumb, or they just lack punch. And a lot of these scenes just run into each other. Now, to be fair, I do like some aspects of the story that you kind of can go back and people can change. I was surprised by that, so there were some interesting elements here. I did even like the opening monologue. Like, okay, this is pretty standard, but, I'm curious to see where it's going. The problem is, just before we go, it doesn't really go anywhere particularly interesting, in all honesty. It just kind of is a mishmash of different scenes, but the performances are kind of funny. There is some energy, kind of a decent story here somewhere. I thought it was okay. I leave it with a C.
Okay. Justin?
Somewhere in this movie is probably a heartfelt story about living life to the fullest, even in our darkest days.
I agree.
How to get to the heart of that story, I'm not entirely sure.
Gotta dig.
Scott, I'll be honest, is surprisingly up to the task despite his established Stifler from American Pie persona.
He was pretty good, right?
Yeah, he's probably the least problematic thing about this movie. Yeah. But it's nearly everyone else bent on turning the film into lowbrow farce. Hated his brother.
Oh, God. His brother was horrible. And
his brother was horrible. And here's the thing. It kind of goes back to when we reviewed Trainwreck. It's okay for a comedy to have a couple serious dramatic moments, especially in a movie like this, where instead of actually facing it head on, they try and throw in these really, really dumb, awkward, or just potentially offensive jokes to try and even it out. It's you can go dark. Skeleton Twins.
Dark, dark.
Very
comedy.
dark.
Extremely dark, but very, very good movie. But it does have a few kind of honest moments. Scott definitely is trying to give it his all with this. But ultimately it plays out like a story written by an amateur striving for so much more, and for the most part missing the mark. I leave with a C-.
I do think Sean William Scott holds this movie together. It's a really good performance from him. I'm not surprised by that, though.
No.
Justin, you seemed surprised by it.
Well, I mean, when you think of Sean William Scott, you think, oh, yeah, the party boy from the 90s, that was kind of his thing, and then he sort of went away, and then we got Goon, which some people saw. Most people don't know of it. But
Well, to be fair, though...
I've never seen him give a bad performance, that was my point. He was great as Stifler. Role Models is a very funny movie.
That's true.
I'll admit,
And he was great in Goon.
I didn't like the Goon that much, but I thought the thing about it that was interesting was that he gave a performance that was very different than Stifler.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
And I agree. I've never seen him give a bad performance either. We have to run this sometime. There's a fun movie, Bulletproof Monk. He can roll. He can certainly roll with different types of roles. So I didn't doubt his acting.
I was not surprised about that at all. But the truth is, at the end of the day, this is a very forgettable film.
Yeah.
It attempts to have a good heart and wants to give us an uplifting message, and that is all fine, but like you both have kind of, insinuated here, it doesn't really commit to it. Mm. It either needs to drop all the silliness and be more understated, or just go all the way and do a Happy Madison movie and lose the message completely, which would have been a much worse movie, but at least it would have known what it was. Maybe appealed to the audiences that like those types of movies. So, in the end, it is sort of just a mishmash, like you both said. I'm with you. It's a C for me. It was clearly going for something, but didn't know how to get there.
No.
Not at all.
You've got like the gay son, and then the love interest story.
I feel like there was way too many subplots.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I
guess you'll get that in a movie like this where he's trying to do
reconciliation.
Yeah, almost like a My Name Is Earl kind of thing, where it's like he's
going from
person to person, right? It's like there's all these like different things that seem to want to work together, and they're just not.
No, everything seems way too separate. It's way too episodic,
right.
And that's because I think it's divided by all these really lowbrow, random, over-the-top jokes.
And that doesn't need to be in there.
It doesn't fit at all.
No,
it really breaks the tone of the movie just inconsistently. Like you find yourself taken out of the movie. Like when the movie's trying to kind of be a little darker, a little more introspective, it's kind of compelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then you get some random, like, racist, sexist thing from his brother was really...
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on. The cop, he just would take it completely out of the movie. Mm-hmm. So if you could remove some of that, this movie would have worked a lot better. And you're right. I do think Sean William Scott does give a great performance, though.
Yeah.
I do. I think so.
But also another thrilling episode of we can't have a platonic relationship, but we have to throw in a romance because Hollywood.
Yeah, that's another. I thought it seemed like it was more standard for this type of movie. That's another example too of how weird the comedy was, because he basically confesses right off the bat what he's doing. He's like, should I report this or something?
Kill your grandmother.
Like, it was like the other person. Yeah, trying to kill the grandmother.
Okay, so we've got our top 5 now, which is, I think this is an interesting one. It's in honor of Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know if he'll appear on any of our lists, but we love the guy. He stars in Southpaw. He has not won an Oscar. Been nominated a couple of times, but still eluding him. So we're doing the top 5 now, actors and actresses without Oscars, and what movie we think that they should have won for. Justin, why don't we start with you?
I'd like to begin with an honorable mention.
All right.
Understandable.
And that would be Naomi Watts. She's been nominated twice. I believe it was for 21 Grams and The Impossible. Extremely underrated movie. But the movie I think she should have won for would be in the 74th Academy Awards. I think Joe will appreciate this.
No, it is.
For 2001, and that would be Mulholland Drive.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's ridiculous that this movie came out. It got all sorts of accolades. A lot of people consider it to be David Lynch's best movie. I'm probably among them, though I go back and forth with Lost Highway. Really, really good performance. I wish she had gotten more credit for that than she did.
Cool.
My number 5 is for movies from 1994, and that would be Johnny Depp for Ed Wood. I love this movie with a passion. I think it's quite possibly Johnny Depp's best performance, because I feel like at the time Tim Burton was still incredibly raw, and because of that he was willing to go in these quirky yet also enticing angles, and Depp was up to the challenge and then some. I feel like it was a testament to the material he could bring to life when he wanted to, and I wish we could get there again. Maybe Black Mass, Joe. Hard to say. My number 4 is from the 75th Academy Awards, which is movies from 2002, and that would be Ian McKellen, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Now, you could probably say his performance of Gandalf the Grey could be applicable to any of the original trilogy. I think we can all agree the Hobbit movies did not quite live up to the originals, but I feel like this one, we really saw his character take center stage and bring it and then some. Right off the bat, we saw him literally fighting a dragon, and we saw how much his character plays into the overall storyline. I thought it was a great performance. I wish he got more credit than he ever received from playing Gandalf.
I think I would suggest Gods and Monsters, actually.
I've never actually seen that, so I'll let you have that one. My number 3 is an actor that I will happily argue is probably the most underrated on this list, and that would be Djimon Honsou, and this one would be for Blood Diamond. Ooh. I feel like from the 2000s up to about the mid-tier, there was a whole slew of Djimon Honsou movies that he should have got a Best Supporting Actor win for. Gladiator, who was great in.
Did you forget Amistad, too?
Amistad in the 90s, fantastic performance. The guy does not get nearly enough credit as he's...
It's kind of criminal, actually.
Baggage claim. I mean, he's got just... His movies are just all great.
Getting to that. Shush. But I feel like if he had actually won for one of these, it would have prevented the sort of downfall in the latter half of the 2000s, where we got Never Back Down, where he basically became this Mr. Miyagi MMA person.
Fast and Furious.
Then Fast and the Furious. Then Baggage Claim.
You disagree, Dan?
I'm sorry. Oscar wins don't necessarily... Have you ever seen a Cuba Gooding Jr. movie after Jerry Maguire? Boat Trip, Daddy Day Camp.
But at least that was prevented for some time, though.
Catwoman. Okay, there's another example. Halle Berry.
Okay.
Right after Monsters.
Oscar movies do not... Or Oscar wins do not necessarily mean you don't do crap.
And honestly, in all honesty, depending on the actor, sometimes they'll just do whatever they want after that because they feel they've proven themselves. It depends on the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And my number 2... Amy Adams. This one I do in fact know who won, and that would be from the same movie, The Fighter, Melissa Leo. I thought Adams really brought it. Ooh. I thought it was a really great performance. I mean, you go back and forth as to whether or not American Hustle or The Fighter should have won it, but I thought this was more daring. I like the way her character progresses in it. I think The Fighter is an incredibly overrated movie, but I think her performance is right up there with Christian Bale's really top-notch stuff.
All right. Well, my number 5, I do have an honorable mention, but the problem is I never saw the movie that the the person that actually won was in, and that's Tom Cruise. The man does not have an Oscar. He's been in many, many good movies. For me, of course, it's Jerry Maguire. I believe the movie that won that year was English Patient, so...
A lot of people have problems with that idea.
But anyway, I think the man should have an Oscar.
I honestly thought he won for Jerry
He's been nominated 3 times. Born on the 4th of July was one of them, and Jerry Maguire was another. But my number 5 is Will Smith. I think he should have won for The Pursuit of Happiness, which he was nominated. Forrest Whitaker won that year for The Last King of Scotland. This was just one of my all-time favorite dramatic performances. Will Smith just gives it his all. His interplay with his son Jaden, playing his son in the movie, is fantastic. Just a great performance. Number 4 is Jake Gyllenhaal. I have chosen, he's been nominated, I believe, twice, but the one I chose was Brokeback Mountain. Just a fantastic performance. The one that really made me say, okay, this guy has it. Before that, I had seen like Donnie Darko and a couple of his, older movies, but
right.
He lost out to George Clooney here, which, I'm a Clooney fan, for Syriana, but certainly Gyllenhaal deserves an Oscar, and this is what he should have gotten it for.
It's on the short list.
My number 3, actually, Johnny Depp was on my short list, Justin, but unfortunately, none of the movies that I would have picked he could have beaten. Like, Edward Scissorhands is my favorite performance of his. That was the year Anthony Hopkins won for Silence of the Lambs. So it's like,
yeah.
All right, I can't pick him for that, Same thing, Finding Neverland, I think, was against Ray Charles, so it's like...
Oh, man, that's even rougher.
Yeah. But my number 3 is Bill Murray. Now, the movie that he probably really should have won for is Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
He was not nominated, and Tom Hanks won for Philadelphia, so I can't take that away from him. So I'm going to pick Lost in Translation, which is not my favorite Murray performance, but it's certainly up there, and it was one he was actually nominated for. He lost to Sean Penn in Mystic River, which I'm fine. Sean Penn's fine, but I feel like Bill Murray definitely deserves an Oscar, and both Tom Hanks and Sean Penn have won Oscars since their films, because Tom Hanks won again for Forrest Gump, Sean Penn won for Milk, so, give it to Bill Murray. My number 2 is also Amy Adams, Justin.
I'm going to say American Hustle.
Well, you are right on that. American Hustle, because she lost to Cate Blanchett, which is ridiculous for Blue Jasmine. But here's the thing. She could have won for Doubt over Penelope Cruz. Mm-hmm. Although that year I would have given it to Viola Davis over both of them, but okay. Also, she could have won for The Fighter against Melissa Leo. I mean, the woman deserves an Oscar. Give her one.
Seriously.
She could have won for any of those 3 movies I mentioned, and probably a few others. I didn't even see Junebug, but I'm sure she's great in that, as she is in everything. So that's my number 2. Joe, how is your list?
Well, if you guys can remember what won these years, I mean, you can tell me, and maybe
Do our best.
I'll see if I can say maybe that's understandable. But yeah, I guess I'll start off with an honorable mention. I don't think this was even nominated for anything. Obviously, it wasn't. But it's funny you mentioned it, Justin. Johnny Depp, I think, is a very versatile actor, and he doesn't really get credit for things that are not kooky, So, in all honesty, Donnie Brasco, him playing Joe Pistone, he does a really good job with it. It's a really good movie, and not just because it's a gangster movie. I really do think it's easily one of Depp's best performances, and it's so different than what he typically does. Even when he's playing Hunter S. Thompson, he's still kind of doing his quirky thing. I'm just
hate the Hunter S. Thompson bit.
So I was considering Fear and Loathing, but that's not really that different for Depp, honestly. No. So that's kind of an honorable mention. I wish he would have gotten more credit for that. But number 5, Tom Cruise. He's been in so many big movies. He's done a good job in some serious ones. I think Magnolia. I think he honestly just blew it out of the water. That was the
third one he was nominated for.
With his
Magnolia.
Performances. I love that movie. It's just fantastic, and he just completely gives it his all in this one. Number 4, criminally underrated. It kind of angers me, but it was difficult to think of one movie that I feel like the Oscars would have given something to. But Gary Oldman is one of the best actors in Hollywood, and he doesn't really get the credit. So, in all honesty, though, his Jim Gordon from the Dark Knight trilogy is really good. If I had to pick one, Batman Begins, I thought he just proved once again how great he was. It's just, if I had to pick one, I was really impressed by that. He just was phenomenal in that movie. One of the best aspects of those movies. So definitely Gary Oldman deserves something. Number 3 is Amy Adams, because she deserves an Oscar. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking she was my favorite part of American Hustle. I just thought I think
she's the best of the 4.
She was so versatile, and just gave a really fantastic performance. Really, if she should have won anything for that, I do agree for certain that year. Number 2, I know that was the English Patient year, so so I'm fine with this. Edward Norton, another one of the great actors of our time, doesn't get anything. So which one am I going to pick? Primal Fear. Okay.
I've heard a lot of people say good things about that. I've never actually seen it.
Maybe I'll run it sometime.
He is a great actor.
But great actor, he's really good at playing multi-layered characters. In this movie, he goes toe-to-toe with Richard Gere in one of Richard Gere's better movies. And really just a fantastic film, amazing performance. And it was his first big one, too. So for somebody right out the gate, maybe that's why he didn't win. But should have blown people away. And that's my number 2 with Edward Norton.
Okay. Well, since I haven't heard any Leos yet, it may be triple Leos all around, but what might be interesting is what movie we all picked. Justin, is Leo your number 1?
Lo and behold, number 1 is in fact Leo DiCaprio.
Okay.
But which one is it? You might be surprised by this. The Aviator. I think DiCaprio has an uncanny ability to really commit to all of his roles. I think this is one of the most ambitious. I feel like with Blood Diamond, he was trying to pull on an accent. He was trying to get into this sort of gritty devil-may-care kind of character. But in The Aviator, he's taking on the larger-than-life Howard Hughes and also handling it, the OCD side of him, spot on. Do I have other issues with the film? Absolutely. But before this, Titanic, Gilbert Grape. Is it my favorite Scorsese? No, but it's definitely one of his best performances, and I think he should have totally won for it.
Okay, well, my number 1, of course, is Leo DiCaprio. However, I did not pick The Aviator because that was, once again, Ray Charles. And I'm sorry, Jamie Foxx gave an amazing performance as Ray Charles.
He did. It's a regular movie.
He did. You're not going to hear...
I also can't give it to him for Blood Diamond, which I would like to, because I've already stated I wanted Will Smith to win that year for The Pursuit of Happiness.
That's a problem.
Right. So what I've chosen is something he did not get nominated for, and it's not Titanic.
Okay.
It is The Departed for Best Supporting Actor. Alan Arkin won that year for Little Miss Sunshine, which was fine, but Eddie Murphy could have won for Dreamgirls, certainly.
Easily.
But then Norbit happened, so I understand why he didn't win. And obviously, of the 2, Leonardo DiCaprio deserves an Oscar way more than Eddie Murphy. God bless the man. So I chose The Departed. Joe?
It's kind of funny. For me, Leonardo DiCaprio has 3 roles which are equally as good, and you picked the other 2. So no, I was really like I honestly couldn't decide, and so and honestly to keep this from happening, I'm gonna say it's Amsterdam from Gangs of New York, because
Nice.
I will admit I do think it's Day-Lewis's movie, but DiCaprio is fantastic in it as well and really holds his own with it. Really does.
Here's the thing. Ordinarily, I'd say that would be a good call. Gangs of New York, they considered Day-Lewis to be Best Actor.
Really?
I don't understand it. He should have totally been supporting actor.
Whoa!
But they put him as Best Actor.
You know what? That is actually a good point. You see, Leo's character is the main character of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's his story. I guess maybe you know what it was. Day-Lewis had just come out of retirement for that movie. Came with this big character, very good performance, excellent. He kind of steals the show in a lot of ways, but I still think it's a fantastic performance from Leo. It really is. So,
no, it's a great role.
You're right, though. The billing was off about that. It should have been Leo for Best Actor and Day-Lewis for Supporting.
Easily.
You're right.
That's weird. Well, my Leo would have given him supporting. I mean, he's not the star of The Departed.
But he's the main character.
You think?
Yeah. I would say. I'd say
basically his story.
Yeah, I'd say so. Jack Nicholson might get top billing, but
Yeah, I would think Jack would, but
he's not
either,
like
Either way, I mean, acting or supporting, because Amy Adams here for Justin's The Fighter, that would have been for supporting.
Definitely.
It's just get a nomination.
So yeah, as long as you have an Oscar statue, whether it's for actor or supporting, these people all are worthy, and countless others. I couldn't believe how many great people don't have an Oscar.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Neeson, Glenn Close,
You'd think
Ray Fiennes. I mean, the list goes on and on. All right, well, maybe this year's Oscars can correct some of that. Leo has a movie coming out, Gyllenhaal, McKellen, so we'll see.
Anyone's guess?
All right, well, we close with our triple feature, of course, and that will kick off with our new classic, Escape Plan. Sylvester Stallone plays Ray Breslin, a former prosecutor who owns a security firm that tests maximum security prisons to see how easy they are to escape from. He is offered a multi-million-dollar deal by the CIA at a top-secret prison, and because it's top secret, his colleagues aren't even allowed to know where it is, nor is he. He agrees to be captured as part of the deal, but once inside the prison, realizes he's been double-crossed and he is in the prison for real. There he meets fellow inmate Emil Rothmeyer, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the two try to cook up a plan to escape and also figure out who set him up. Jim Caviezel, Sam Neill, and 50 Cent, yet again, co-star. Could have done the top 5 50 Cent movies this week on the show. Escape Plan is what the Expendables films should be, but fail on every level. It's our 2 favorite action stars from the 80s together, playing off each other, having a blast, and as a result, the audience is having fun too. Seeing the escape tactics are fun. It all ends in this classic over-the-top action sequence, a lot of gunplay, a lot of helicopters, a lot of jumping. It's all very silly, but it is a good time. I enjoy this movie, and I give it a B. Justin?
Well, much like when we reviewed Big Game, this is definitely a dumb action movie starring past their prime action stars, but in an age of the Expendables, why not? It plays out sort of like direct-to-DVD structures, but that got lucky on theatrical runs, but instead of heading into the overly serious sabotage territory, it understands its own stupidity and, for the most part, has fun with it. Unfortunately, the sad attempts at constant reliance of "we're old" jokes fall very, very flat, and the film goes on easily 20 to 25 minutes too long. I had fun watching it. I don't ever have any burning desire to watch it again. I will raise my original C to a C+, though.
All right. C was a little low for that movie. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, Dan. I mean, I thought this was a good time. You're right. You get these Stallone and Schwarzenegger together. It's great. I do agree. I wish that the Expendables did take some cues from this movie. Just have some fun. Don't take it too seriously. But I did like the prison stuff. I did like the escape. I did like the explosions, the action. I thought Caviezel made a good villain.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty good. I mean, your time is up. So when he says that in the trailer, that's when you think the movie should end. Like right then, just the time is up.
You
just
think?
cut it because that's about that point. Yeah, I think they do a pretty decent job embracing the silliness, give some decent performances. I don't mind their old jokes. I mean, it's kind of almost expected, though.
It's
They
not
have to
my
do it.
favorite either, though. Justin knows how much I hate it.
I mean, they're not great, but in all honesty, they kind of almost obligated to do
Well, I
a little
sort
bit.
of,
I don't think so.
I kind of appreciate it more in a movie like this, where they're both old and kind of taking jabs at each other, than in Terminator Salvation.
Oh.
Or Genesis, I mean.
Where he's like...
In Terminator Genesis, where he keeps saying, like, oh, I'm
not
old but
obsolete.
not obsolete.
We
It's
get it.
like, we got it. Like,
Yeah.
you young whippersnapper. Like, come on.
It's
You know?
adorable that you're having fun with this, but let's move on.
So I mind it less in a movie like this, or maybe like a Red, where like everybody's kind of senior citizens.
So they can kind of interchange a little better.
Yeah,
It seems
yeah.
a little more natural that way. Yeah, I liked the little twist at the end. I thought it was engaging. It's a classic B, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It is a classic B. Why don't the Expendable movies work like this? Is it because there's too much going on, so they're trying to like throw everything in there? Because this is quite a contained story.
Well, also, the Expendables is an ensemble piece, which means we're trying to focus on, like...
That's what I mean. Is there too many? There's too much going on in these movies.
I think so. I mean, I think the Expendables 2 is probably the best of the bunch because it sort of understands
How silly it is.
how ridiculous it is.
I think we mentioned this recently, but the Expendables movies, they either have to take their plot seriously, which they don't want to do, or don't. And they try to have like these really overcomplicated plots with a lot going on and a lot of people in it. Now, I don't mind that it's an ensemble piece. Now, maybe it's because of who they picked, but this is one of my issues. I don't mind that they have a lot of the classic 80s stars together, but why have the wrestlers and the non-actors in
I
there too?
hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, no
I
offense.
hate it.
If you're gonna have a
It doesn't
passing,
make any sense.
well, if you're gonna have a passing of the torch of the next great action stars, sadly we don't have many.
I was gonna say.
Then get them in those movies, or not whoever was in.
Yeah, Ronda Rousey and
like-
Kellen Lutz.
Kelly, right?
That's-
Hercules himself.
That is the.
Kelsey Grammer. I mean, all the great action stars of the day.
That's. I honestly think the problem. Like,
Yeah,
you're going for
certainly
some.
with 3, that was the problem.
They're trying to get so many people in there. Like they have the wrestlers, they want to get the
Yeah.
WWE people in there, and they want to get
Even 2 though, even Expendables 2 had Liam Hemsworth in it.
That's true.
What's he doing in there?
he's
you know?
Unfortunately, they get him out of the picture pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so.
thank God.
Spoilers. And then there's Grammar trying to get old Frasier people in
don't
there because it's funny.
understand. I
And in
don't-
all honesty, they're trying to do too much. Like, we know who we want to see. Get some of the other people in there.
Well, that's what I like about Escape Plan. It's your 2 favorites. There's no Dolph Lundgren. There's no, B and C grade action heroes. It is the 2 biggies sharing one movie. Like, Arnold is barely even in the Expendables,
Yeah, sadly.
And
that's the problem too. You should have it structured like, in all honesty, the people that people want to see the most and focus on, make them the main characters.
Yes.
Okay, and then have everybody else as supporting.
Yeah.
Even in the Expendables later on, like Jason Statham and Jet Li, they're barely in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, they like the best fights,
Well, and I feel like that's why Escape Plan did not do that well at the box office. Because Expendables movies are certainly on the decline.
Easily.
And each of their solo movies, The Last Stand and Bullet to the Head, were basically DOA.
True.
And it's a shame because this is much better than either of those movies.
I'd agree.
I mean, Last Stand was okay, but this is certainly better.
Oh, yeah. Far
Yeah.
and away.
It's more fun, at least.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I think it's more what you're expecting.
Yeah.
It doesn't pull any punches that you aren't seeing coming.
Yeah.
But I guess my big issue is I wish it was a little more tighter in that regard. Like, it got things moving at a more adequate pace. Mm-hmm. This one understands how dumb it is. But like Big Game, it's only 90 minutes long, so it keeps moving. This one, it's like they're really trying to go hardcore on this escape.
Yeah, and they could have trimmed about 10 minutes off it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I can't say I was, like, bored with it or, like, was hoping it would be over, but it's a little overly long, yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, well, up next we have our old classic, and Justin, it was your pick this week, and you chose Following.
Stalker movie.
Jeremy Theobald plays Bill, a writer who decides one day to start following and observing various people around London. Though when he's confronted by one of the people he's been following, a burglar with a peculiar sense of what and what not to take, named Cobb, not to be confused with the same Cobb from Inception, played by Alex Haw, Bill ends up immersed in a world that can turn nasty at a moment's notice, and how much he knows is always up in the air. Now, if you ask me what my favorite mainstream Nolan movie is, I'll usually say The Dark Knight, but if you ask me what my favorite, unique, particular effort from him was, I'll easily say his debut feature film effort, Following. And I feel like it's because of its low budget, and the fact that it takes neo-noir to new heights with a story that burns with intrigue straight out the gate, And I'd argue holds for the brisk running time. I feel like the story's compelling, and I like the fact that, unlike Memento, where I feel like the narrative dynamic sort of becomes a gimmick, this one becomes more or less of a challenge. I embrace the whole trying to piece the timelines together to figure out how the story's coming together. My one big issue is I feel like the final reveal comes a little sooner than it probably should have, which unfortunately means the twist isn't as effective as it probably could have been. But I still think it's an incredibly solid debut feature film effort from Christopher Nolan, obviously inspiring later complex things like Memento and even Inception in some regards. Mm-hmm. I live with an A-.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on board with you, Justin. I saw this one a while ago. I think it's definitely the most raw Nolan feature, of course, but you get to see some of the building blocks of the things he's best known for. Definitely some layers there, definitely some interesting plot points. But I like how grounded it is. I like how gritty it is. I think that the people seem like people, and it is kind of taking this really strange subject matter and running with it. I do think some of the editing is a little choppy, and I think that the storyline maybe could have been handled a little better. Maybe the twist is revealed a little too early, but I did remember feeling kind of interested in it and being genuinely surprised. And it's a film you definitely have to pay attention to, and there is some good writing here. And it doesn't drag too much, though maybe a little bit, even despite the long running time. I'm a little below you. I leave it with a B+.
Well, I think this is a very interesting piece of cinema. As a music fan, it's fun to delve back into a band's early discography before they got famous. And as probably the biggest Nolan fan on the show with his recent releases anyway, it's definitely of interest to me to kind of delve back into his past and see his start. I like the structure, the noir feel. I thought the soundtrack was terrible and annoying. Just like, I mean, it was just like instrumental pieces, but it was really, I wasn't down with that at all. The acting's okay. I wish we got to know the characters a little bit better, but because of the incredibly short runtime, that doesn't really come to fruition. But the story is solid. I think it's shot pretty well. It is edited a little bit wonky, but I thought it was shot well. It's got some interesting angles. So I sort of compare it to like a band's demo tape that helps them get signed. There are things here to intrigue, but it's far from a finished, solid work. I leave it just below you, Joe, with a B.
It's the opiate of Tool, basically.
Yeah, kind of. Like, every band seems to sort of have that, opening start that usually is like, well, it's intriguing. It's maybe the lyrics are good, but the guitar parts aren't fleshed out. Or, that to me is like, this doesn't feel like a complete movie.
I can see that. Yeah.
No,
I agree that there definitely could have been some more establishment with the characters, but I feel like with the dialogue in the scenes and the interactions between them, I think we know enough about them to see where the story's going.
I was going to say.
Yeah, we got some of that.
The entire basis of this movie, I would argue, is sort of on a need-to-know basis. So I feel like knowing too much of their characters would sort of betray their overall intents with it.
Well, it's kind of, you're supposed to have this air of mystery, like what are their motivations? We don't know, and that would kind of affect the twist later on, obviously.
Exactly.
So maybe we aren't supposed to know them that well anyway.
Maybe I just liked the conversation portion and wanted some more of that.
No,
maybe not necessarily background on the characters, but
more interaction.
Just more interaction.
I agree. The conversations are the best part.
Yeah.
No, my favorite scene in the entire movie is when they first break into the one house.
And they
saying
how much you can observe about a person based on what they own.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's easily my favorite scene in the entire movie. I see where you're coming from with the score. It didn't really bother me that much, but I mean, then again, this was an independent experimental effort. I think on a budget of like $15,000 or something like that. And I believe they made some note of like they were filming it like every Saturday for like a year and like 15-minute segments. So, I mean...
Here's my issue with that.
Go on.
And not that every filmmaker does things the same way, but the thing I kept sort of going back to while watching this movie was Clerks.
Okay.
Kevin Smith made that on a shoestring of a budget. Really, every time the soundtrack swelled up, I thought of it. And he had Alice in Chains on the soundtrack, and Soul Asylum, and established alternative bands. How he got them, I don't know. Doing favors, whatever. Mm-hmm. But... he got the job done, and Clerks has an amazing soundtrack on a shoestring budget. So it is possible.
It is.
And that makes me think that Christopher Nolan liked the way the soundtrack sounded
Well,
And
I mean,
so,
to be fair, those
It's
are,
not John Williams or James Horner here, but
No.
it works for what
It's
it
like
is.
you can't if you can't get a band. I mean, you could just do traditional scores. I mean, that's generally the way it is, and I was fine with it. I like the atmospheric
I don't like
stuff.
it.
You know, maybe not. I wonder how you'd feel about Pi then. That one score, the whole
Maybe
movie.
I wouldn't like it.
I don't know. I'm just like, and I was thinking, following does remind me of Pi. It's very similar to Aronofsky's for us, though
Okay.
I'd argue a little more intense, perhaps. But
No, it's
surreal,
definitely
of
more
course.
intense, but
yeah, very very similar beginnings to two amazing directors, I would say. So yeah,
Interesting.
it's a good choice, Justin. Very good
thank
choice.
you.
Okay, well, we have just one film to go. That's our Oscar A to Z. We are in the B section, and a movie from 1939. Another one. We just did one a few weeks ago. This one is called Bachelor Mother, and it was nominated for Best Story. Joe?
Polly Parrish, a clerk at Merlin's department store, made me very happy, is mistakenly presumed to be the mother of a foundling baby, was found outside, and outraged by her unmotherly conduct, she basically denies that it's hers, and everybody thinks that it is hers. David Merlin, who's her boss and the owner of the company, becomes very determined to keep the single woman and her baby, quotes, together. And that's basically the ensues about trying to get the relationship together, even though they're not romantically linked at first, and all the misunderstandings that ensue. I enjoyed this movie. I think Ginger Rogers actually really gave this very grounded, believable performance. Like, very different than a lot of performances of the time, because in a lot of these older films coming off of vaudeville and everything in the early sound era, they tend to overact. And it's just very common. It's the way it was done. She didn't really do that. Like, I felt like I was watching a more modern character. And I really liked the performance. And maybe that speaks to the writing, too, because there was some really interesting forward-thinking subject matter, once again, with this one. Just kind of the idea of motherhood and relationships and responsibility and family and the shifting of generations. A lot going on, but some fun moments, some good comedy, some very snappy dialogue. Certainly wasn't bored with it. Very brief movie. Though it is basically a glorified commercial for Donald Duck.
I wrote that as well.
I have to mention that, like, it's. I mean, I didn't mind it, but it's ridiculous because she works at the store, which is basically a Disney store. It's Merlin's store, but it's got to be Disney, where she's making Donald Duck figures, and it's even integral to the plot.
Yeah.
Later on, especially one crucial moment, and it's probably the best use of product placement I've ever seen, because it's set in the store, it's set in around the characters and their motivations, and it brings them together. But maybe there was a little too much of it, though, like with the quacking that goes on forever, and it sounds like he's demonically possessed.
Yes.
But I really did enjoy it. I think there's some stuff here that is definitely ahead of its time. But overall, it fits together pretty basically. They could have maybe expanded it a little bit more. On the whole, though, pretty enjoyable. I actually leave it with a B+.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think the two leads have great chemistry, Niven and Rogers. I think it's a really cute story. And one thing I really, really loved about this movie is that it has very simple sets. It's in the apartment, it's in the store. This is in a year, 1939, when everything was getting grandiose. Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Babes in Arms. This is a very, very simple piece. And I think that speaks to how well written it is, because they didn't need to go all out with, crazy things. I think it's a little more slapsticky than it needs to be sometimes.
Maybe a little.
Agreed.
And it does serve as a Donald Duck ad, as you said.
Yeah.
The baby was really cute. And I thought it was good that Ginger Rogers sort of spread her wings a little bit with this one. This was, shortly after her whole run with Fred Astaire. So she definitely proved here she is more than just a song and dance woman. She's quite adept at comedy, apparently.
And charismatic.
And charismatic. Yeah, like I said, the chemistry was good as well. So I give it a B+ as well. Justin?
I feel like this is a film where you have to embrace its lowbrow lunacy to sort of get on board with it. The premise is bizarre. The whole randomly accusing her of having a baby was awkward to me a little bit.
A little bit.
But fortunately, thanks to the ever-consistent charisma of Ginger Rogers, it gets gradually easier to embrace it as the film goes along. And I felt like that complemented the funnier moments of the film, because Rogers is so down to earth in this one. Her chemistry with Niven, I feel like, gets better later on. At the start, it's a little bit odd that it goes in that direction, but I eventually got on board. Some of it is gimmicky, the whole Donald Duck thing.
Hard to ignore.
Some of it I thought was funny, some of it I think wasn't. But at 82 minutes, I can't really complain too much about it pace-wise, and I felt like it was a fairly fun, breezy romantic comedy. I leave it with a B.
Yeah, boy, 2 really short movies in the triple feature this week.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was funny, but it was, like, I don't know, it's sort of one of those older movies that you could see them doing now. Hugh Grant, for example, in the lead role. And they did actually remake it as, like, a musical in the 60s or something with the girl from Singing in the Rain, Debbie Reynolds.
There we go.
So, yeah, it's a story that sort of lends itself to just non-dated comedy.
No,
I mean, you could do a lot with it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's some... No, it seems like there's material that could definitely carry on to future generations. It's not limited by the time and place.
Yeah, it really isn't. I mean, maybe you wouldn't have the person living with their landlady, now, but...
Maybe not.
Sure, she's the maid or something now, not the landlady. You can adapt it, but... Yeah, for a movie I've never heard of, I thought it was very enjoyable.
No, there's definitely ways to respin this. I feel like a lot of the stuff this movie's trying to talk about, just in terms of having a baby in the working world, what does that mean? How do we take that? I mean, you can even look at this as possibly inspiring baby boom.
What a movie!
A little bit.
Yeah, you could, or yeah. I mean, there's a lot of movies that sort of do carry on that sort of trope of. Yeah, single mother, Murphy Brown, even. I know you guys are...
I was going to say you have me at a disadvantage.
No idea what that was.
I explained that to Justin once. I thought maybe he'd remember. All right, well, another good one in the books. We actually have a mini-sode coming up for our next Oscar A to Z, and that is Back to the Future. We're going to tackle all 3 in a mini-sode. So we'll have that for you next week instead of a traditional triple feature. But that is going to do it for the show this week. Joe, you mentioned the Bachelor Mother takes place at Merlin's store. You've got the Merlin channel, of course, that we always talk about.
Yeah. Just got some other ones coming up soon. I might actually do a Mission Impossible review up there. I'm also going to check
Dragon Ball Z one, I assume.
Yeah, the Resurrection of F. I mean, it's old news for a lot of you guys listening, but it's coming out to theaters. I said I was going to wait for the dub and everything, and give you guys my thoughts, even though they've told me some mixed things already. So
interesting.
But I'm holding out, and also I'm gonna check out this classic apparently called Legend of the Galactic Heroes. So some old anime there I've heard is really good, and I also started the website, so you guys can check that out.
I saw that. That's awesome.
I've got to get some. I'm gonna start trying to get some better quality videos up there and put them up, and I'm also maybe try to get some Film Fanatics stuff up there and maybe help get the channel up here to get our own website, because that might be cool.
Sweet. Yeah, I would love to do that. And if you have not subscribed yet to our channel here, you can go ahead and do that. And you can check out the 5-word reviews weekly at Film Fanatics with an exclamation point on Facebook, and as well our Twitter feed, which is at Film Fanatics Pod. We'll see you back here next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.